Hello everyone, it looks like we're live. I'll wait and make sure audio is working okay for you guys. I am having a weird, like my cameras are, it's not freezing now. I was freezing earlier. Gibson was actually frozen for a while earlier. So, what, did you hear your name over there? So anyway, we are live. That is really, is it super blurry for you guys or is it just, oh, quality 144. Okay, that's why. So I can just leave that lower quality. I don't need to be streaming on my end that low. Okay, there we go. Audio good. A little low on your end. Let me see. I may be able to fix that. Hold on one second. I actually know why that's happening. So it should be a pretty easy fix, assuming I don't accidentally unplug anything. Let me find where I put this. 1 second. I did forget to fix this. Okay, is that better? Hopefully I didn't just blow anyone's ears out. Let's see how that is. I can turn it up a little bit more again if I need to. Let me know how that goes. Oh, look, my email came in of my live stream. If you are not signed up to my email list, I strongly suggest you do that. I send out an email twice a week, once on, well, usually both on Wednesday, but letting you know whatever content I had go live because YouTube does not notify anybody anymore. And I also let you know, oh, this is playing. This should not be playing anymore. Hold on. There we go. I also let everybody know when, like 5 minutes before the live stream goes up, because again, YouTube doesn't know notify anybody. The link, Angela, should be in the video description. If it's not, you go to lachri.com. I've definitely got links all over there on how to subscribe or sign up for that. It's free and it's cool because I'll give you some art motivation, some tips. Like we talked a little bit about today, or I talked, I guess we didn't talk. I sent it to you about one of the things that we tend to do that really holds ourselves back, holds our work back, holds our motivation back, holds everything back. We're also going to be talking about that at the end of this live stream. So that will be a fun conversation. And just some stuff I've been thinking about a lot myself with the videos, but it really applies to art as well. So that will be cool. And what's next? This painting that I'm going to be doing tonight, the Dandelion, if you want to bid on this, if you are a US resident, or if you have a friend who's a US resident who will ship it to you overseas, then that would work as well. But that's kind of a backwards way to go about doing it. It is a real pain for me to ship paintings overseas because they usually get held up for like 6 weeks. And it turned into a problem. The reason that I don't do that, just so you guys think I don't love you if you aren't in the US, the reason that I normally will not ship overseas is I was having a problem where, and I would warn people, it's going to take 6 weeks to get to you. That's just how it goes. I have no control. I have no tracking information. There's no way for me to send that either, which is weird. Also, I shouldn't have eaten that granola bar right before we started because I'm pretty sure there's crap in my teeth. But anyway, what was happening was artwork was getting held up in customs. And it was just taking forever to get through to people. And I'm not sure why that was happening, but it was such an ongoing issue. And the last time, like the thing that made me take all of the stuff off my website where I was shipping internationally, you can still buy prints internationally, but not the original artwork in most cases, because I had one woman try to get her money back through PayPal, even though hers was a print, so it wasn't the end of the world. It was like a $40 print. But even though I gave her the shipping information from customs, she still was trying to get her money back from PayPal, even though it hadn't even been 6 weeks yet. It was a whole thing, and I was like, it's just too much drama. Also, hold on 1 second before I get going. I think the baby bearded dragon may have left me a stink bomb, and if it is, I need to clean that up because I am not sitting in here. No, I don't see anything. You're just stinky. Or if you left one, you hid it and I can't find it. No, it's not a pleasant smell to work through. Anyway, how can such a tiny little lizard make so much stink? Anyway, oh, I did not turn this on. Whoops, there we go. Nope, that's not the button I want. That's the button I want so I can actually see Discord. There we go. Okay, I'm getting sick of Discord reminding me, sign up for Nitro, sign up for our paid service. I'm not doing that. I'm just not. Stop. I'm out of focus. Oh, am I out of focus completely? Yeah, everyone is saying that. Let me see if that's something I can fix really quick. Here I'm in focus. The whole thing? Or just was it for a minute? It may have just been for the minute. Let me know if it looks okay for you. It may just be that the resolution is dropping. 4 seconds, something wrong with keyframes. Let me see. It's in focus now. Okay. So let's get all this little, the hiccups done before we start the painting so that looks good. Okay. So yeah, that is why I don't ship things internationally. But if you are in the US and you want to bid on this, the bidding starts at, I think, $65. It's going to be a dandelion. You may want to wait and see if you think it looks like a dandelion. It'll look like a dandelion. Okay, the canvas that we're working on tonight, this was provided to me by Fredericks to use for this video. They were already the only canvas I used. I have just had so many problems with generic crappy canvases. I don't like Blix. I definitely don't like Hobby Lobby. Don't like any of those generic canvases. Huge fan of Fredericks, and so that was already the only canvas I used. So no difference for me there. This is a watercolor canvas board, so it is super, super smooth. That means when I start the blending, it is going to blend smoother than a rough canvas. When I start the detail work for the dandelion, the little hairs and all of that, that is going to be easier because I'm on a super smooth canvas. And I know it says watercolor canvas board. I've never even tried them for watercolor. I like them for acrylic painting and airbrushing. Okay, is that it? Can we get started? What am I forgetting? I think we're ready. Okay, so the dandelion, if you don't have this, you can find the reference photo over at my website. It came from Unsplash, but I did upload it to my website, so you can download that and paint along with me. And I'm going to start with just getting a solid base color on the background. Just a solid green will probably be good. That way I'm not fighting the white of the canvas. We're going to do some wet into wet blending tonight. Don't worry, no airbrush tonight. So if you do not have an airbrush, it is not going to be an issue for you there. I'm going to start with just a background layer of Hooker's green. Now the Hooker's green is a little bit on the translucent side. Actually, most of the colors that I use are a little translucent. You can even add a little bit of white to it to get rid of it, to keep any streaks out. So yeah, I think that's a good solution. I'm gonna add a little bit of white to that. White being more opaque is going to make the paint itself more opaque. It'll also make it more pastel. So keep in mind, if you're trying to keep a dark green, adding white, not necessarily the solution. For me, and this is just a base layer, so we're not fighting the white. Once I did not clean this brush well. I'm gonna have to soak that in Master's brush cleaner. So anyway, adding a little bit of white will make it more pastel, but that also means I'm not gonna have it come out as streaky for that base layer. And I don't really care what color this is. I just want a solid color. Let me switch this up. If you have questions, leave those now. I'll be answering those at the end of the video or at the end of the painting. Yeah, much, much less streaky than it otherwise would be. And I'm thinning that out with a bit of water. You will see a video that is quite popular because I don't know why YouTube just likes to share things that aren't true. I don't know. It's got a lot of videos because the scare tactic nature of it, but it will tell you do not thin your paint with water. You only use mixing medium. You can use mixing medium. That's totally fine. I don't like the way mixing medium plays with acrylic paint. So I prefer water. Every time I'm doing this, I'm stopping and dipping my brush in the water and then loading the paint. The video will tell, there's a very, very popular or widely viewed video that's pretty old here on YouTube that tells you that it will cause underbinding and blah, blah, BS. It is complete made up crap. I don't know who originally made up that information because it's been spread for a while. I don't want to make it sound like that lady is the only person spreading this, but it's not true. You can mix 90 to 95% water. If you're using a quality paint, using quality gesso, quality canvas, quality everything, 90 to 95% water is not going, it won't hurt anything. No one is mixing 90 to 95% water, so it's not even really something you have to worry about. Once you varnish your painting anyway, let's say it wasn't adhering as well as you'd like it to, like you could scratch it off with your nail or something. Once you varnish it, it's not gonna matter anyway. That seals it down. I used to paint furniture, like tables and stuff. And when we first got married, the usual, we were very broke. And so I would get hand-me-down or furniture, like solid wood furniture at the thrift store, sand it down, paint scenes on it. I had one table that I had painted a scene with dolphins and space and all of that. And I varnished it. And then I used to use it as a table. It was next to my reef tank that I had at the time. Salt water is extremely damaging. That gets on stuff. It ruins stuff quick. Never had a problem. I mean, I stood on it. I had salt water on it. I'm using a mop brush here. It was totally fine. So I'm just going over this with a mop brush to smooth out some of those lines. It does not need to be perfectly smooth. Now, my mop brush is not actually a mop brush. It is a blush or a powder brush, a makeup brush. This one is, and it just says powder brush, Precision Beauty. There's a link, there should be a link in the video description for one I use all the time that has an orange, this one here, that has the orange handle. This one is Real Techniques. These are wonderful as mop brushes because they don't shed like a normal mop brush would. Now, another tip about mop brushes, when I used this, only the tip got just a little bit of paint here. There should not be much paint coming off on that, or you're not getting paint all the way up here. So when I rinse it, I'm just gonna barely put the tip of the bristles in my water, and then I'm going to take that over to a paper towel and rub that off on circles, try to get it that as dry and clean as possible, so that when I'm ready for the next layer, where we're really doing that not really bokeh look, more just out of focus look, the wet into wet blending, this needs to be dry and ready to go. I actually recommend having multiple, so if one is still wet, you can switch brushes, which I do often. Oh, Tessa, thank you so much for the super chat. She said, let's start this party off with a treat for the doggies. Oh, did you see Gibson's head just pop up? He knows. He's like, that's the super chat sound. Are you already, look at him. That's the first time he's done that because he's not supposed to get up when I'm live streaming. He's like, you said the super chat word. I know that means treat. Wade, are you going to come get a super chat? You want a treat? Come get a cookie. You can get up. See, he's trying so hard to be good. Whoops, wrong camera. Okay, thank you so much, Tessa. You guys got a super chat treat. These are your favorite ones. Okay, here, let's back up so they can see how cute you are with your treat. Ready? Okay. Good boys. Gibson's gonna go take his over to his bed, and the drool's already pouring out. I used to keep a carpet in here. I'm kind of glad that I don't have the area rug in here at the moment because Gibson just drools everywhere. Very good. Okay, go lay down, bad cow. Lay down. Both of you go. Lay down. Lay down, Gibson. Gibson. Lay down. Slowest race dog ever. This is why you flunked out of racing school. Thank you so much, Tessa. The boys certainly thank you. Okay, so this brush, now, okay, I'm leaving this to the side and it has paint on it, and I would normally kind of lecture you guys and say don't leave your brush with acrylics laying. I'm going to use it in just a second though. So I'm not going to go through the trouble of rinsing it because it's so dirty. Yeah, they switch beds constantly. We're going to dry this. Now, this needs to be 100% dry before you move on to the next layer. Otherwise, when you put paint on it, if it was almost dry, it'll start to lift paint off. So make sure this is dry. Now, I also want to let this cool all the way. If you use the hairdryer to dry your paint when working with acrylics, make sure that canvas cools down all the way. If it's hot like it is now, it's just going to make the paint dry that much faster. That is not helping with the dry time of acrylics. Someone will always say, why don't you use a slow drying medium? Because I hate them. They make the paint gunky, they change the consistency. I do not like them. I'm not saying you can't complete beautiful work with them. I'm saying I don't like to work with them. They don't work very well with my techniques. So this, I'm gonna wait for that to cool a bit. And I also will feel it because if you can kind of feel when it's still wet, it'll be a little bit tacky. Now, if you're using an acrylic paint that is a high gloss, let's say Liquitex Soft Body or the Liquitex Heavy Body, Goldens, any of those are going to be more sticky or tacky feeling anyway because they are already high gloss. But the Liquitex Basics, it dries flat, so it should be more matte. And Liquitex Basics is my preference. Well, one, I love that it dries flat because I can use my charcoal pencil to draw things out, or I can use tracing and transfer paper and it sticks really well. If you use a high gloss acrylic paint, sometimes those tools do not want to stick well. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's hit or miss on how well they want to stick. I have much better results on the Liquitex Basics. It will normally stick really well unless you cake it on super thick, then it may not stick as well. Okay, that's cooled down. It's still a little warm, but for dry time, let's go ahead. Oh, Wendy, thank you so much for the super chat. Oh, I don't know. Look at, Gibson didn't pop up. He's like, there's no way that we're getting another treat that soon. But you boys got another super chat. Do you guys want a treat while we wait for this to cool? This is actually a good time because I do need to let that canvas, I would rather let it cool a little bit. I was gonna rush it because it's a live stream, but okay, boys. Thank you so much, Wendy. The boys, thank you. You guys have had such a good day, huh? Back up. They had their nails trimmed today, and that's always a little bit of drama. Gibson going to take his to his bed, and there we go. It's always a little bit of drama, especially with the bad cow trying to take off my face because he does not want his nails done, and he was so good today. We've been working with him. Go lay down. But that also meant they got a lot. Wade, go lay down. Down. They got a lot of treats today as a reward. Wade, lay down. There you go, bad cow. And bed swapped again. Okay, so this should be cool. It's actually still a little bit warm, but good enough. Okay, so the next portion, this is where it gets more important on what you're doing. We need the entire thing, top to bottom, to stay wet as we work in order to get this wet into wet, that blurry look. So this is your friend. Link should be in the video description. This is a fine mist sprayer, or I'm sorry, ultra fine mist sprayer. This one is the Delta Artist one, but realistically, I think I got this one from Blick. I also have one that is just a cheapy one from Amazon. Works the same. I cannot tell the difference. So either way will work. If you have an airbrush, you could also airbrush water. The point is you want a very fine mist to keep it wet. You don't want to use a regular spray bottle like for spraying your plants or cleaning the house or whatever. That will give you big water droplets. And when you have big water droplets, when you go over it with your mop brush, the mop brush will pull the paint off of wherever there was a heavy water droplet. That's why you need something that's very fine mist. Now, the fine mist sprayer can occasionally spit out a bigger droplet, but it's pretty rare. It's not as much of a pain as, say, a normal spray bottle. Now, if I were using let's say I was painting a big mural on a wall, go with your normal spray bottle. I'm not going to waste my time with this on a big, huge, full wall mural. I use spray bottles then, but for your canvas size, like any canvas size, even the big ones, I go with this guy. Okay, so that is ready to go, and the colors that I'm going to be using are black, white, my hooker's green, and deep violet. Actually, do I have deep? Yeah, I've got deep violet out. I've got two. I've got deep violet. I also put out some other kind of magenta color that I don't think I'm going to be using. I think we'll go with deep violet. And you don't have to use the same colors. The point is that I want to get some variation in the colors as I go through here. So this upper section, I'm going to add a little bit of black, a little bit more white because this is kind of a grayish, and I don't need it to be exact. I'm just using it as a general guideline of what is on my reference photo. Again, that reference photo you can find over at my website, lachri.com. And now we're getting this softer grayish tone. Now I'm going to pull some deep violet right into that, and I'm going to mix it into the green. This is going to help me to have that pinkish tone without it being like, wow, there's some purple. We want a hint of purple, not in your face. Oh my gosh, that's a lot of purple. There we go. This is going to look a little bit overexposed just because of the light. Now this is a little bit dry in some of this. I'm going to just lightly mist that with my fine mist sprayer. And I don't want to soak it. I don't want this to just be dripping water, because if it gets too wet, then the mop brush won't really work very well and you have to sit there waiting for it to dry a bit. Like right now, this is a little on the wet side. If I were to take the mop brush to it, it's probably not gonna go super well. I'm gonna get a little bit more color pigment on there with the violet, a little bit of green, a little bit more violet. And I am okay with mine being a little bit darker than what the reference photo has on that background, because that means my dandelion is going to stand out that much more. So now I'm going to wipe the paint off my brush. You may be tempted just to dip it in your water and rinse it out completely, but I've got chunks. Can you see the chunks of paint like built up in here? This will just dirty my water so fast. So the easier thing to do, pinch that off. And now when I rinse it off, there's not a lot of paint there. I'm not making my water super dirty. I saw a video recently that told you had to use 2 separate things of water because your water had to be perfectly clean when you're painting with acrylics. Absolute BS, not true. Word of the day today is BS. Not true at all. Your water with acrylics can be really dirty. This is not, I'm using more black now, this is not watercolor. Watercolor, you need it to be clean. Acrylics, it really does not matter. Okay, so I've got some black and green mixed here for this darker spot. I've got a little bit too much water mixed in there. It's coming out a little too translucent, so I'm going to load some more paint on my brush. There we go. And I'm going to let the magenta and that black just meet. I don't want this to dry, so I'm going to mist that again just in case. Just a lightness. You don't need a lot. Now we're going to start moving into more definite green. So I rinse the black off the brush, put some more green out on my canvas. Nick says, what was that? Someday I'll grow up to be a mod as good as Nick. Careful, Rod, I'll put you to work. Rob. And then I'll say, oh, you're already right there. I'm already mispronouncing your name like I do Joseph and Nick, where my brain shuts down and forgets people's names. It's my superpower. Okay, so now I've got more of the hooker green. Now this green being more translucent, this is why having that base layer of green was so helpful, because if I was trying to get that over just white, it would be very streaky. But because I'm going against that lighter color, that base color, any base color, that really helps. Now this, before it starts to dry, I am going to take a mop brush and soften this out. I need it to be a little bit more wet. It's starting to dry. Now I have to be careful. I might have made that a bit too wet. No, we're okay. Now, let's say you're doing this and yours does not come out as smooth as you want. Let it dry and put another coat over it, another layer. You can do this as many times as you want. And generally, the more layers you do, the better it looks anyway. So don't be afraid if you have to put another 2 or 3 times going over that. It's actually kind of easier. I'm going to start adding white now. It's a little bit easier if you just plan on it, because then it's not as frustrating when things don't go quite how you wanted them to. I'm going to just get the bottom of that canvas wet. And I've added some white. And I'm going to add more and more white as I get down into this area. Right down into here, we've got a lot more white. And then I'm going to get the hint in just a moment of blurry brushes. And there is a cricket losing its mind in the baby dragon cage. Let's get a little bit more green now, right in this area. Now I need this to stay wet. That's the big thing here. Either you paint really fast or get yourself a fine mist sprayer, because this needs to be wet. And it is possible just to paint, especially on something this size, it is absolutely possible just to paint fast enough that you get it laid in there before it dries. But you do have to paint fast to do that. Got a little bit of magenta in here. Wipe that off the brush. Let's reload it with some hooker's green. I'm going to get a little bit more with the magenta back here. Just getting some variation. Maybe a little bit more white. I'm going to spray this because I know that is starting to dry. And I just keep wiping my brush. Instead of cleaning it each time, I just keep wiping it on my paper towel to lift enough of that color, and then I reload it immediately. You don't have to rinse it in water every time, and especially in a case like this where most of these colors are going to be mixing together anyway. You're going for that just blurry, fuzzy look. Oops. See, that was a mistake, but it won't even matter. All I'm going to do is reload that with some green paint, which I wanted to get in here a little bit more anyway. Okay. I also, at the end of today's video, I've got a box opening from Giclée today, so we can find out together how these prints came out. I'm going to mist that a little bit. Don't over mist it right before you blend. You've got to be careful. You've got to have the right balance of how much water is on there before you blend, because too much and it is not going to be a happy ending. That could definitely ruin stuff. But then again, also don't stress yourself out about it. Worst case scenario, things go terribly wrong. You dry it, put another layer on top. There's nothing you can do to that canvas besides putting a hole through it, which you're not really going to do on a canvas like this one being a canvas board. There's nothing you can do to it that you can't fix. You just have to learn how to fix it when something does go wrong. So this is nice and smooth now. You know, I think I am. What time are we at? 8:25? Yeah, you know what? I think I would like another coat on here to make sure that that's really dense with the color saturation. So I'm going to rinse this brush. I need to grab another paper towel too. Let's dry this. somebody just commented on something. Sheila said it doesn't look like the canvas is taking the paint well. What is that about? Manufacturer coating? I'm not sure what you mean. It's working perfect exactly as it should. Like there's nothing weird happening with this. The paint that I use is fairly translucent because of the way that I glaze. That's why I go with that one. I'm not sure what you mean about not taking it well. It's definitely exactly what it's supposed to be. If you want to be more specific, maybe I can look further in it, but it's behaving exactly as I would expect. It's a very smooth canvas, so the paint will glide across it beautifully, which is what I want for the way I paint. So I hope that helps. Oh, you're just seeing the glare at the top of the canvas. Yeah, let me show you real quick. That is, maybe I can turn that down a little. I mean, I need to be able to see too. Oh, that doesn't really help that much. Yeah, unfortunately, there is definitely glare here, but let me show you what we're at. So we've got this light. Hopefully that shows you the color a little bit better. But I am going to put another coat on that. So this is actually too dark and I can't see what I'm doing anymore. What was I just about to do? There we go. There was something. What was it I just said that I needed to do before I switched? I definitely do not remember what that thing was. I thought it was something I needed to get. Oh, paper towels. There was something. Okay, let me grab that real quick. And just like before, we need to make sure that that canvas is completely dry before we put our next layer on there. And the lid to my palette is on the floor. Almost killed myself getting back to the easel. There we go. Okay. So I don't even need to clean this brush. I'm just going to add some white to it. So I get that grayish tone. Let's pull some of this in there for that upper section of the canvas. It's kind of a muddy color, which, there we go. I find that every time you do another layer, it just looks better and better. So if you have a time and you're doing something like this and you're thinking, I'm not in love with this yet, do another layer. It will almost always get better. And if it doesn't, do another layer on top of that. A little bit of white to that. Oh, too much white. There we go. I'm going to let these, and I apologize, that glare is pretty bad. And every time you do another coat, it'll look more and more smooth. Especially in this case, now that color, if anything pokes through under this, it's almost the same color. So it just looks more and more smooth with each additional layer you do. Even if a little bit of the grain of the canvas is showing through, it's completely covered with whatever the next layer was supposed to be. That is really dark. Let's lighten that up. Canvas is a bit dry. We'll dab that with a bit of water. Dab is not the right word there. Spray would be a more accurate word. Pull this up just a bit and see how nice and smooth that is. And as I get down here, I'm going to start introducing more of the green. So that canvas there, that brush doesn't have a lot of paint on it, but I'm going to rinse what's on it off. Reload that with some green. Bit of white. Let those two push together. Make sure both of these colors have to stay wet. If this area here started to dry, when I put the green on top of it, I'm just going to get that dry brush look, which is kind of, dry brush is something you can do, but it's also in many cases, whoops, that is not the color I need. In many cases, it's kind of this, I'm new to painting or new to acrylic painting sign. So it looks speckled. Oh, it was probably just, yeah, the canvas being wet. Stop grabbing the magenta, Lisa. That is not the color you need. Yeah, that's one of the things that's so nice with the Fredericks. It's one of those things, like, I know I am never going to have something weird go on with that canvas. I'm not going to have an issue with Paint sticking, I'm just not gonna have issues with it. So whereas I was having issues when I was using some other ones I had when I used other ones I'd used. Grammar is not what we're here for tonight. Down here, we're going to get a bit more blotchy. Now I can pull some of that magenta I kept trying to grab for. And this is just a number 12 filbert. It's a Tech Lumbersold filbert. This is the Simply Simmons brush. Fairly inexpensive, but they're really, really nice for acrylics. Huge fan of these brushes. Let's get some more magenta over here. And it does not need to be exact to your reference photo either. That's the other thing. Don't stress yourself out trying to make it exact. I just want it soft. That is really what matters to me here. Okay, you are starting to dry a bit. Make sure this brush, your mop brush or blush brush, powder brush, whatever brush you're using to blend this with, has got to be dry. If it's even a little bit wet, whether it be wet from paint, wet from water, it is going to create streaks instead of taking them away. So make sure that is dry. That's one of the reasons that I recommend having multiple available to you, because it gets wet. You need a brush that's dry and ready to go. So if this one's not ready, I can grab a different one really quick. I'm going to brush this in streaks so it kind of gives you that hint of grass a little bit. I'm going to pull a little bit more white in here, a little bit up here. It's starting to dry too much. And how fast your paint dries largely will be impacted by how humid the room you're in is. Apparently it is dry in here. My paint is drying fast tonight. Okay, that is it for our background. And this, hold on in a second and I'm going to show you what that really looks like, because that is super glared, but I need to rinse these brushes first. And I will show you how muddy your water can be, and it's still perfectly fine for acrylics. And the great example here is I'm going to be painting with white, and it still won't matter. So the video is telling you, oh, and you use two different things, because if you do thin your paint with water, it needs to be a clean. No, it doesn't. That is what people who do not know what they're doing say. I think that's one of those, tell me you don't know how to paint with acrylics without telling me you don't know how to paint with acrylics. Tell people they have to use fresh, clean water at all times for their painting. Sorry, I'm on a rant about that stuff. I'm amazed some of the advice I've been seeing lately. I'm just like, why are you telling people that? It's just not true at all. You're making things up. Okay. Now, I need to dry this completely. Only 87% of you took the poll yes for that you hit the like button. Oh my gosh. Let's see. Your chat feed isn't moving. I'm sorry. Okay, so this I need to wait for it to dry just a moment. Now, I put a few layers on here. The more layers you put, you know how I was talking earlier about Liquitex Basics take the charcoal pencil and that sort of thing a little bit better than the higher gloss paintings. Well, the more layers you get, however, with Liquitex Basics, it pushes you closer to what it would be like with the gloss paintings where the charcoal pencil doesn't stick as well. So this really needs to cool for a second before I can even have a remote hope of that pencil sticking. Let me go get this out of the way. Hold on 1 second. What is Matt texting me? One of my neighbors, my friend, gave me a bird stand, a new bird stand for the birds last night, and they were terrified of it. But it looks like Sushi has decided that she is no longer afraid of it because she's currently sitting on it. Okay, I know you guys care. It's a good chicken story. And scream chicken story. Okay, is this getting dry? Kinda. It's a little tacky still, and it's still a little bit warm. But let me show you. You can see the color now. This is what that stage should look like. So if you're painting along, you want to get at least this dark. If you go very light, although that could be pretty too, but if you go very light on your canvas for your background, your dandelion isn't going to show up quite as well. So having the darks where they are, it's going to make it pop really nice. Okay, now we need to get a white charcoal pencil. I have a feeling this feels kind of sticky to me. I'll be surprised if the charcoal pencil sticks well tonight. So the reason that we go with a white charcoal pencil instead of a graphite pencil, if I were to draw this on with a graphite pencil, I'll show you. It's not going to show up. Let's see. I can't see it. You know what I'll be able to see later though? I'll be able to turn this to the side and be able to see where the freaking shiny mark was. So even if I erased it, it's still going to show. Don't use graphite pencils on top of the paint when you're working, whenever possible. Instead, I mean, there's always an exception to everything where sometimes that's just the way you have to go, like if you have a really light background, but white charcoal pencil, so much better. It will show up and it erases better. So I'm going to make my stem, I'm going to make a mark where the stem is going to go here. So this is, I know I don't actually draw things very often in these videos. I usually have them pre-drawn on charcoal paper or tracing and transfer paper. But watch what I will do. This is how I position or figure out how I want things positioned. Okay. I want the base of my stem to be about down here. And I just put a little mark. And I want that to come to maybe here. And I want the circle-y bit to be about here. And see how very light, you can barely see what I'm doing. And I know I'm going to want that bigger. Actually, I may not, because I'm not accounting for the seeds. I just make little lines. And then when I'm ready, once I have everything mapped out about how I want everything positioned, then I'll start doing the detail. But first, I just want to figure out, okay, I know I want maybe about this far, and I'm just going to dot where I want that big circle for the dandelion. Now notice I don't just make some big heavy circle. The reason for that is if I did, it's not going to erase well. If I realize, oh, my circle's too big, my circle's too small, I can't easily erase it. Little dots, we can easily cover that. Now, normally the white charcoal pencil, I had mentioned it normally erases very well, but I'm pretty sure, actually we'll test it on this. Where is an eraser? Apparently not over here. Let me grab an eraser and I'll show you. Sometimes when the paint is feeling a little bit sticky, it just does not erase all the way. And I have a feeling this is going to be one of those nights because I put 3 layers on. Oh, it actually is erasing okay. I lied. I'm a pro. So let's go ahead and dot about where we want this to go. I think I want it higher. I think I'd like mine to be up a little bit higher. So again, going to dot that. We've got that gap here. That also means I'm going to make you a little bit bigger. Now I'm going to go ahead and start drawing things in heavier. Notice that I did not, when I decided I wanted this little circle to be a little bit larger, I didn't erase it first. If I erased it first and then redrew that circle, I'm going to draw the same thing. I'm going to do the same mistake. It's probably going to be the exact same size as the wrong one was. So instead, when you're drawing and you realize, oh no, something needs to be a little bit bigger, don't erase it. Draw it, get it the size you want, and then you can go erase the wrong one. Don't erase and then draw. I cannot tell you how many times I have seen students do this, and I'll do it myself. I'll just keep making the same wrong size. So a little tip there for getting correct drawings. Now I'm going to put little lines about where I want the seeds to be. Notice that I don't spend a lot of time drawing in teeny tiny detail at this stage. This is one of the problems that a lot of people have when they're figuring out what perspective they want something to be, where something ends up being too big or too small. Now, I don't need this exact to my reference photo, but I want to make sure that I get it to where it fills out my canvas nicely, so it's positioned how I want. If I start drawing in all this little detail in one tiny area, I'm going to either be too far to the left, too far to the right, too big, too small. Something's going to be really wrong, and it's a waste of time. Then I have to erase that little detail. Make it easier on yourself. Just kind of map out about where you want things. Like, I actually want mine to be a little bit flatter here. So notice again, I didn't erase this first. I drew it where I wanted it more flat. Now I can erase. And then this comes up pretty tall here. And the nice thing with drawing something like this really does not need to be exact. Close is close enough. Now, I had that dot up here about where I wanted that stem, and I have the bottom. Now I just need to connect those lines. And now erase the line that I didn't like. Again, notice that I left it there until the line I did want was in place. Okay, that gives me enough to go on. I think I'm going to put a seed over here with one sticking out, so I'll do some of those little floofs. And I also want to put some little floofs out here. I'm going to do a little seed, another little seed, and that guy will go the opposite direction. And let's put another down there. So I'll do 3 here, 2 or 3 up here, and then the main shape. So the first thing I'm going to do is the center and the seeds. And I'm going to use a liner brush. This is a number 2. This is a script liner. And for the white, I don't want it too bright, so I'm going to mix some yellow. Actually use the same deep violet. We want that to be a sort of grayish cream color. No, whoops, wrong white. This white, that's just dried up old white. Okay, and I can go ahead. This is actually a pretty dark gray. I probably should get a bit more white. Now here's a cool tip. When you're mixing paint, right now I mixed this gray here. If it doesn't show up clear on the screen, that doesn't matter. But what I do not want to do, if I take a big chunk of paint and I start stirring it in the middle, I barely changed the color. Instead, I'm going to rinse my brush. I'm going to take some paint and I'm going to come off from the side and slowly pull it in. Now, and then same thing, if I want it even lighter, I'm going to pull from here, pull off from the side. Don't just keep taking a chunk of paint and stirring directly in the middle. You're going to waste a lot of paint doing that. By doing it this way, where I pulled off from the side, rinsed the brush, because I had a lot of paint on the brush, rinsed it off first, and then started kind of off to the side from the wrong mix. Now I've got a much more accurate color to what I'm looking for. And I'm giving you guys all the different tips tonight that I normally don't share. So we're going to draw this center guy. Now I'm going to rinse that brush off, and I'm going to put the little dots for the shadow on the inside. I've got some magenta, I've got some black, I think there's some green in there. Point is, it is not straight black. I'll even throw some white in there so it's not too dark. That is too dark. I'm actually going to grab a bit. I happen to have raw sienna, or actually that's red oxide on the palette. May as well grab some of that. That'll actually work pretty well for this, since I'm going to need that later anyway for the stems. Now, let's go ahead and just get a few of my little dots in there. Now, they'll flatten out and be thinner as they move to this side or the top, because they are changing the angle that you're viewing it. Doesn't need to be perfect. Don't even worry about it. When someone looks at it, they're not going to look at it and go, oh, your perspective's off on those circles. Sometimes that would be the case, but not really here. I'm not super worried about this. Okay, I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to go ahead and start painting in my seeds. And the seeds, I'm using red oxide, raw sienna, or I'm sorry, burnt sienna would work as well. Actually, I don't need all this green on here. Let's just clean this up so I've got some more palette space. So what I like to do to clean the palette is just take a razor blade, and we're just going to scrape up the areas that I don't want paint on. This is why I love glass palettes. It just makes cleanup and switching colors so easy. I used to do, if you watch my really old videos, I used to use a piece of tin foil in an old pie tin. And while that works, it's also quite wasteful because you can't really clean it like this. So I'd have to throw away an entire piece of foil if I wanted to change stuff out. Here, actually, let's just mix a new batch there. Now I don't have to do that. Way less wasteful. I have a lot of green paint on my hands. Okay. Now let's go ahead and mix that color again. I'm going to be using a combination depending on which shade I want, how light or dark, but the colors I'm going to be mixing together to get this are going to be my red oxide, black, and white. And the shade that I get just depends on how much of each of those colors I get. The black is what makes it more of a brown tone, so it's not just light orangey red. Okay, let's see. We've got a seed pod going here, and I'm just going to start with one color. We'll come back through and add some shading on top of that later. We've got a whole cluster of these seeds over here. And they're coming out from this area. And this looks absolutely terrible until we shade it. So don't be scared if you're like, oh my gosh, I ruined it. It looks like a cartoon now. You're definitely fine. Okay, I'm going to darken this up. Actually, I think I'm going to dry that first. Let's just avoid creating a muddy mess. Probably dried that longer than I needed to, just so that I could zoom in a little bit. I'm going to add a bit of black to my red oxide. So now I've got a dark brown tone. Let's start getting some shadows in here. That cricket is driving me insane. It's funny, the sound of the dart frogs chirping, I love, and it's all peaceful. Those crickets drive me crazy. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. We've got a lot of darker areas behind these light ones, so I'm going to paint those in as well. Remember with the liner brush, if you want a really thin line, don't push as hard with the brush. And I keep mixing this. There's a little bit of water in here. I'm thinning that paint with a bit of water to get that nice smooth line. If you push very hard, you're going to get a thick line, or if you load just thick paint, you're not going to get this nice thin line here. But I want to get some variation in the colors. I'm not sitting there trying to paint everything shaded perfectly. None of that really matters for this. I'm going to put some highlights now. So I'm just adding white to that color I was just using. We've got some white tips on these, or lighter tips. That's a little too muddy. Let's pull some more brown into that. And make sure as you go over these, I'm not trying to completely cover the previous layers on there. I just want it to look like there's some variation in the values. But I've got some that are lighter, some that are darker. Is that cricket driving you crazy too, bad cow? Okay, I'm going to get a little bit more white for the tips of some of these. We've got some other seed pods that are going to be in a couple of other locations. I'm not going to worry about those yet. I am going to put the stem on this guy and the seed. And then I wanted a couple down here. So we've got that thicker base and then the thin line. Art of Raven D said, if the crickets annoy Bad Cow, bring the crickets to me. I love listening to them. Normally they don't bug me as much. This one is like this really bad high pitch and you're just kind of like, I don't know why it's echoing weird or what that one is doing, but it is, and it's constant, and I'm definitely cleaning that cage out and getting rid of all the, they keep escaping out of the food bowl, and those are the ones, she doesn't catch them. They just get bigger and bigger in there, so yeah. I'm gonna have to clean that out. The escapees are hiding under the bricks. Okay. She likes to bask herself on bricks. I want to get more of an orangey tone in there. I feel like I could definitely use some more color saturation. So in order for that to work, I'm going to put some more highlights in there so that the highlights will show up. Otherwise, they are not going to show up super well. Look at how some of these are little short ones. Some are longer that are down here. Now, I'm not doing the really long ones that are going to connect out there just yet. Those are coming. Okay, I'm going to dry this and go over this with the burnt, or I keep saying burnt sienna. It's very similar colors, red oxide. Okay, let's get that red oxide in there. Pull a little bit of magenta, just so it's toned down a bit. Let's get some of that in there. You know what? I want some yellow too. Let's really bump that color saturation a bit. But I also need to thin it with water because it is too opaque. There we go. That is giving me that warmth that I wanted. I'm also going to do a little bit of shading with some green. Right, I'm going to need to thin that with more water. Right at the base here. And you can't really see it on the camera, unfortunately, but there's just a little bit of green, little shadow right in there. Okay. Just for some added little detail and shading, I'm going to take a little line of black. Come here, let's pull these out. Separate a few of these. Now, luckily mine is dark enough behind it. That is going to stand out enough. I don't have to put too much dark behind. Now, let's let that set. I am going to go back to this. Let's start getting some of these thinner stems. This is not straight white. Actually, it's probably needs a little bit more color in it, so it's not, I think it's even too white as it was. And we're going to start putting in some of these connecting lines. And I'm going more even around. I'm not just doing one area because I found I have a tendency, if I just put all the lines I need in this area, I don't fan them out enough. So what I'm doing is working my way around the dandelion before, actually I should do that stem in just a moment here, before I go in and fill in a whole bunch of these. That is going to help me to make sure as I work my way around that they are fanning evenly out instead of like all clumped and leaning to one direction. Because trust me, that's not cute. Ask me how I know. Okay, before I get too far, I do want to put that stem in because some of the stem needs to be behind these guys. So I am going to switch. This will work. This is just a flat brush. Let's get some white in there. Pull a little bit of yellow in there. Too much water. How do I know it's too much water? It's beating up, like it's soaking into the crevices of the canvas instead of like floating on top. It's just too, I just hit more water. It's just too runny. There we go. We're going to fill that in. Need a little bit more water. I'm getting a bit of a dry brush look along the edge, which, like I said before, that lets everyone know you're not a pro. Before anyone gets mad, I know there are times that dry brushing looks good. They're just kind of rare. There's a reason they push those tips in beginner books. It's easy. Don't look good, but it's easy. Okay. Yeah, I hold the brush closer when I need more short control. When I'm doing a looser brush stroke, it depends on the type of brush stroke. You'll see me start holding the brush way back here. So that's an interesting thing Dolphin Soul just noticed. It's a matter of how much control I need there. It's like a different amount depending on where I'm holding the brush. But that's a good catch, because normally you will see me hold it back a bit further. Again, this guy, if you are interested in it, you can bid on this painting over at my website. If you want an original, this actual painting, I think the starting bid is at $65. And okay, we're going to leave that alone, and I'm going to come back to painting these little stemmy guys in. I bet they have a really much harder name to remember than stemmy guys, but I won't remember them, so I'm not going to bother. So now I can start getting these thin lines. But see, because I put those initial lines and I had mapped them out or spread them out, it makes it much easier for me to guide where these go. And let some of them overlap. Don't just make even lines. This isn't a fence. Mine right now looking like a fence. Let's get some overlapping in there. Crisscross a few of these. If things are too uniform and too perfect, it just looks unnatural, it looks fake. Things in nature are weird and go in weird directions. Make sure you get that variation. Okay, some of these I will pull out with more white. Actually, let's thicken up just a few of these. Because I did a really good job of thin lines, but I need some of these to be a little bit thicker. Remember, if you have questions, leave those in the, well, leave them now, and I'll be answering those as soon as I'm done with the painting, which shouldn't be much longer. We got the bulk of this done. The rest is actually pretty easy, or pretty fast. Okay, I'm going to switch and just use straight white now. Actually, I'm going to put some more white on my canvas, because that is, or not my canvas, my palette, because that is really dirty. So one of the things I want to bring up with your paints, what size paint should you buy? These big ones, these little ones, or these mid-range ones? Completely depends on how fast you're going to go through this paint. If you paint, like if you're not really sure how fast you're going to, I'll go with this one. This normal size, this is the 4 ounce, 4 fluid ounces. Yeah, go with this is a safer way. What happens is if you get these bigger ones and you don't use them fast enough, they will, as air builds up, especially this one here, as air builds up in that paint is going to start to dry over time. So these, you're going to have less air because there's less paint, like you go through it a little bit faster. Whereas these big ones, hold on one sec. Oh, these bigger ones, I like Hooger's green, I go through so fast. So it's not going to even remotely start to dry out. But let's say this took me several years to go through. I want to go with the smaller one. If I know it's a color that I don't use as often, go with a small one. The white and the black, I usually go with bigger. Usually I go with these ones, but they were out of it. So I got this huge, what is this, 13.53 fluid ounces. It's big, but there is a chance of this one drying out when air starts, you know, the more paint you use, the more air ends up inside this. So when you're deciding which paint, that's how I decide which one to buy. Normally the smaller one, the 4 fluid ounce is kind of perfect for most cases, except for black and white. I prefer this one. Any color you're going to use a lot of, go with this one. This, for me, I don't go through it often enough. That's worth it. And while we're at a break, we have Tessa who wants the boys to have another Super Chat cookie. Say, yay, Super Chat. Thank you, Tessa, for the Super Chat. Oh, Wade figured it out first. Wow. I'm surprised the Bad Cow figured it out. Oh, you're getting all your favorite Super Chats. Thank you so much, Tessa. Oh, do you love Tessa tonight? Yeah, she's getting you all the treats. It's a good time. Your timing on these have been perfect, too. Like, this is a good time for me to pause for a second. Back up. Ready? Easy. Good cow. You're doing a good job today being gentle with treats. He normally kind of takes my hand off. Wow, Gibson's just going to chew on it right here. You're not getting another one right away. Go lay down. You're good. And the drool. My gosh. Go lay down. Go lay down. Go on. They're just going to stand there and wait. No. Thank you so much, Tessa. Tessa says, I love watching them. Such good boys, huh? Say, we deserve treats. Okay. Oh, did I say that? Okay, good. No one's head popped up. Like sometimes I'll not paying attention, say the word, and yeah, they get all wound up. Okay, back to painting. So now I am going to go ahead and start on the little floofs at the end. You've got a couple of ways you can do this. One, you can do it straight with a liner brush. I'll show you a couple of those first. Then I'm going to save some time, do it with a smaller rake brush for a few of these. Now the rake brush is really going to depend on what size your canvas is, if that's useful. The bigger the canvas, the more useful the rake brush is going to be. If you're working really little, just stick with a liner. But what I usually do when I paint these is draw the shape, a big kind of loose V-U hybrid, and now we're just going to put little floofs coming out from them. And they will overlap. I cannot stress how important the overlapping is. Now the other way you can go, which can be a little bit more complicated, a little bit harder to get the hang of, but it can, once you do get the hang of it, it will save a lot of time, is a rake brush. So what a rake brush is, this one is a filbert. What it is, this would be your normal filbert, there's your rake brush. So you, with one brush stroke, you get a whole bunch of little strokes. It just can be a little bit of a pain if the painting is too small to really get the effect you're going for. So normally if I use a rake brush, I'll do that to block in the base of everything, and then I'll define a few little wisps on top of it. So same thing, just kind of get that V shape. But look how fast that goes. I mean, I still have the wispy look, but I will have to come back through with a few individual strokes on top of that with the liner. Otherwise, it will be too uniform looking. And that's the thing with the rake brush. It is very easy to have it be too uniform and not get that variation that you want. So the trick to that is just to go back over and add a few individual wisps with the liner. And you do have to thin the paint down with water. Using the rake brush is very similar to using a liner brush, where the paint has to be thinned with water in order to work. If it's not, I'm just going to kind of go around the edge here, and then I'll define these more. If it's not thinned with water, it'll just work like a filbert. It will not work like a rake brush where you're getting all these little wisps. But it does give you a really nice, soft, fluffy look. And here, it's just kind of all over the place because these are the ones in the background. Now, don't fill in all of the background. I don't want a white solid glob here. I want to see little bits of that background showing through. That is very important. I would rather see you build this up slowly than go too far and fill in your background and try to fill, you know, come back through and do the negative spacing. It's not that it can't be done. So if that happens, don't feel like you ruined anything. It just makes more work for yourself. So whenever I can make less work, that is the direction I want to go. Now, if you have an airbrush, I love the look you can get with an airbrush where you just lightly go back over it with a little bit of white paint, soften that out. That is a trick that I do all the time when I paint dandelions to get that super, super soft look. But you can also glaze over it to get it too. So there are other ways you can do it, and that's what I'm going to show you tonight, is how to do it without. But if you have an airbrush, that is a great option for you. See, I've tried to get some of these individual sections in here where it's not, you can kind of tell the individual seed heads. And these ones out here, I'm going to, well, I'll put a little bit with this, but most of it's going to be done with a liner. Same thing out here, just a little bit of a hint, and then we'll do the rest with a liner. I've got to make the ends of the seeds of these have that reddish tone as well. Okay, so right now I have a super soft look, but I need to get that bright white in there on top of that. So we're going to leave that. I'm going to focus a little bit on the liner brush. See what I mean? It goes really fast. It's like the subject, and that's very common. The subject doesn't often take quite as long as the background. What's around it will take a lot more time. Don't rush through it though. Take your time on the background. Take your time on the little seeds. Take your time on the things that don't feel like they're as important. It'll make a big difference in your end result. The key there is just take your time. Now, I don't know if you can see. Can you tell there's like a glob of paint right here? That is too much paint. I'm just going to dab that on my paper towel. Get rid of that glob, because that glob would have absolutely left a big glob of paint on the canvas, and I would have had to fix that. Now I can start pulling a few of these longer ones out. And I'm also going to better define a few of these white stem guys. And look how much brighter that starts to get. Now I can go back over too if I want to go back with that rake brush and get more of a softer area to it. You can just keep building. Painting like this, it's a layering process. This is not a paint by number. You're going to layer until it looks good. And a bad layer, if you get to a point and you're like, I don't like mine, it doesn't look good. That's a normal part of painting. It doesn't mean you've ruined anything. You're just not done yet. Keep layering. You will have bad layers. And sometimes I hear this a lot where people will say, I liked it better in the previous layer. I overworked it. I shouldn't have gone so far. The concept of overworking is more of an oil painting where you overblend and you really should have stopped and let it dry, or watercolor. You can certainly overwork something because of the way it keeps reactivating. But for the most part, that word gets overused by a lot of people who think that, oh, it looked better a few layers ago. A few layers ago, it wasn't finished, so it didn't look better. It was still unfinished. You just hadn't hit a point where you pinpointed what you thought went wrong. When that happens, just keep layering. Layer until it looks good. A bad layer is totally normal. I mean, what were you going to do otherwise? Leave it unfinished because you felt you hadn't at least ruined it yet? Yeah, but it's not finished. What different? You're not helping yourself. Layer till it looks good. Do not be afraid of ugly layers. They're just a normal part of every single painting. Some of these have these little white dots in them. Let's get those in there. Actually, I need to start getting those centers in a lot of these. That paint's a little bit thicker. So that glob of paint I was avoiding on my brush, I can have that now. This is where the floof meets the little stem. And the ones where I'm putting the center, this lets me know too, besides the fact that it needs the center, where I want to better define some of these. And I'm not just inventing polka dots. I'm looking at the previous sections I had done and hitting that base. So not random polka dots. I think that's a big deal too. When you're learning to paint, it's very easy to think things are more random than they are. So I talked about variation, but controlled variation. You want to make sure you're putting it there not because you're just randomly putting spots everywhere. That's not going to look good. Pay attention to where these are going. Tessa said, do you think it would be possible to see Chicken getting his millet treat? I follow you for your talent, but I love seeing your babies in all their form. You know, I will get one tomorrow. No. Wait, are you serious right now? You said the treat word. No, go lay down. I didn't say what you think I said. Go lay down. Go lay down. You're very cute, but no. He's not done. That is funny. Lay down, Wade. Wait. Oh my God. All my training out the window in one night. Anyway, yeah, Tessa, I will get a video for you tomorrow and post it over on Instagram and MeWe. I can't bring him in here right now with the boys, so, but I will definitely get some shots of that. He does like his millet, and he thanks you for your previous millet donation. We actually got a lot of treats for them at that point. We got millet, we got seed treats, we got a few toys. We went crazy that day. Treats for the boys. I didn't say it, Wade. Or maybe he's just starting to associate the word Tessa with the whole event. See, I'm just going to keep layering. It's not like you go into it knowing this is how many brush strokes it's going to take. You're just going to keep layering until you like it. The harder you push, the thicker that line is. So you want these nice thin little lines. Just don't push very hard. I want to make sure too I get some of these going in different directions. It's easy to make them all look like U's. Some of them, the little hairs stick out all around because they're aimed at the viewer. And I reserve the right, after sitting in front of this for so long, my eyes are starting to get blurry. I may make, if somebody does buy this, there's a very good chance I will make a few touch-ups tomorrow with fresh eyes. Because it is, I pretty much always do that. Anytime you sit in front of a painting for too long, your eyes will start to get blurry and you start to not notice little things that you otherwise would be like, oh my gosh, I missed a whole line there that should be somewhere. Little guys floating away. And then we'll come back and do some more up here. I'll get that, Nick. Actually, let me go ahead and rinse. Rob, I will get that commercial for you before, after I get to my next break spot here. Good suggestion. I need to make some more. Or I could do it now, and that means I could get a drink of tea. Also a possibility. See how I just keep building these? So some of these are going to come further in and overlap a little bit more over the seed pods. But you want to make sure those little seeds are still showing through. And we also want to start getting some more of these guys, these brighter ones showing in. Just straight white paint, making it easy. Notice too, all of these lines are at least slightly curved. They are not perfectly straight. If you go perfectly straight, it'll have a more stiff feel to it. That doesn't mean it wouldn't be pretty, so if yours are stiff right now, that's fine. But if you can slightly curve all of these lines, the stems, the lines coming off the tip of the stems, all of this is slightly curved. Highlight a few more of these, and I'm going to show you a trick to make it look even softer. So those of you with the airbrush, you would just airbrush this part, but I am going to do a light transparent mixing white glaze. I need a few of these wisps to stick out a little bit further. The big thing too with this, it's not completely random. See how I've grouped them? I made those little spots and then I grouped these little clusters around that spot. That looks like those individual seed heads. If you just put them random lines and make it one solid mass, that isn't going to look right. If you want to make the dandelion look more realistic, break it up into each individual seed pod. That will give you a much more natural feel. And it doesn't need to be exact to still look more realistic. It just needs to be controlled chaos here. Okay, I'm going to dry this. And actually, while I dry this, we'll get a message from the boys. Without treats, these puppies are so sad. Your Patreon pledge of only $4 or more gives them cookies of happiness. Act now, and the bad cow gets a treat too. Oh, and you also get over 300 art lessons and a new one every single week, plus other rewards. Sign up at patreon.com/Lachri. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and I'm going to get some transparent mixing white. If you don't have transparent mixing white, you just have titanium white, you can do that with this as well. You just thin it with a little bit more water. Transparent mixing white is just kind of safer because it's already pretty translucent, whereas normal titanium white is very opaque. I am just going to take, this is an older, I think this is an oil painting brush. It's really frayed. It doesn't really matter what you use, it's just that I'm going to fray the heck out, or I'm essentially dry brushing right now, but it's transparent and it's a super smooth canvas, so it won't even look like I'm dry brushing. And I'm just going to lightly go in circles and lighten this whole area around the edge. Not so much in here. I want this to be darker, but around that edge, it just gives you that softer look, just a little bit. I can put a little bit in these guys, just a little to soften that up. See, sometimes dry brushing works. And especially if dry brushing, you've been using it, but you want it to look smoother, try a smooth canvas. This watercolor canvas board is great. Frederick's Blue Label is my other favorite. They're so smooth that when you dry brush, it doesn't really look as dry brushed because you're not hitting the tooth of the canvas as much. There's not a lot of tooth, that's why. So for that technique, that may be a good option for those of you who like dry brushing but want a smoother look. Just a little bit on there. Okay, look how soft that is. And then if you've got an airbrush, you can just airbrush just a little bit of white right around the edge, and you're gonna pretty much get the same look. Airbrush will be a bit softer, but they're very, very similar. Okay. But I love that because you can still see the details. I can see more details in person than what you guys are seeing. Let me show you. Let me see if I can get that to show up well. I'm not quite done, but you are out of focus. And right about here. So you can see there is a decent amount of detail in there, but it's soft. It gives you that really pretty softness that you're just not going to get with using just the liner brush. Okay. Let's get a little bit more of the seed pod look. So I've got that red oxide, some white. I'm gonna get right on the ends of these. I'm gonna pull some of this in here as well. Just a few more touch-ups and we'll get over to your questions. And this unfortunately is really overexposed. Oh my gosh, Tessa said, here's a treat for chicken and the doggies. I adore the thought of them hearing my name and thinking it's treat time. Look what you did. Wow, Wade, are you serious right now? Okay, Wade is not the smartest cookie of the bunch, but he does know the word cookie. That's his other trigger word someone had asked about. That's the main one. He's sitting here. Look at him. Can you see this? You're just licking your lips. You heard Tessa and you're like, I get a treat now. Thank you so much, Tessa. Okay, boys. Oh, what is this? You're getting pushy, huh? You're not supposed to be over here. Look at him back. That dog is too smart. I've not trained him that. All I said is, you're not supposed to be over here. He backs up like, oh, this is where I'm supposed to stand. I swear to you, that dog understands English. You used to be a man, huh? You got turned in, I think a witch turned him into a dog, knowing him because he was farting too much in front of her and thought it was funny, huh? Well, you want these? Yeah, it's good. Okay, good boys. See, thank you, Tessa. Yep, and I think Wade thinks that's the word. Okay, go lay down, boys. Lay down.
Without treats.
Lay down.
These puppies are so sad.
Spoiled. Although, oops, sorry about that. So spoiled. Although if there was ever a day that they deserved an extra treat, it was today after their nails being done. They were so like Gibson's usually good. Wade though was like, this was his best he's done in so long. He was such a good boy. So they already got a lot of treats earlier because of that. So anyway, a couple little details and then I'm gonna finish this up and we'll get on to questions. Almost done. Thank you again so much. Now, their metabolism is so fast, I can pretty much give them all of I can't even say the word right now or they'll jump up and it doesn't affect them. Just a few these little details too. Like it doesn't look, there we go, it's still overexposed. But those little details don't look like much, but man, do they make a difference. Like when it all comes together. Now see here, I smudged that and I didn't notice it because I had paint on the side of my hand. Let me show you how to fix that. I'm going to take a clean brush with a bit of water, just work that over as long as it's not dry, which it shouldn't be because I didn't paint that long ago. And I'm going to lift that up. That brush is too soft. This one's more stiff. And it just erases right off. But I have to, if that was completely dry, I wouldn't be able to remove it. I don't know if you can see where it was, but that completely lifts it. Now, if your paint was not a good paint, if you're using a really cheap paint, then this could start to lift those previous layers. If you overwork an area like I just did, but because Liquitex Basics and it was on there pretty thick, not a problem. Okay, and we need to sign this. So actually, let's soften this a little bit. Oh, it is soft. It's just that it's the words are hard. It's the pencil, the charcoal pencil. Okay, let's zoom this back in or out. Which one are you? You're not that one, not that one. Come on. Why must you be difficult? I need the palette. No, not the palette, sorry, the easel. There we go. Let's zoom that so you can see where I'll sign it. So when you sign a painting, I'm going to go on one of the bottom corners. And what I like to do is hold the end of the paintbrush and see, do I like the balance here or here? I think I like the balance with it being over here. Now, quick tip, when you sign your name, use a white charcoal pencil. If you struggle with making your name look realistic, use a white charcoal pencil so you can write your name like you normally would. I don't like where that is. Look how it's attached too much to that. Don't like it. I'm going to erase it. And this is why we use the white charcoal pencil, because it erases. But that, didn't like. I'm going to try that a little bit lower. There we go. And you want to make sure, because this would need to be, if it can either be hung, like on, if you have a shelf, like a wall shelf, you can set it there on the shelf and it'll look wonderful. That's probably one of my favorite ways to display this. But you can also put this in an open frame. So if it's going to be framed, that frame is going to go a little bit over the edge. So make sure your signature is not touching the edge of the canvas. Otherwise that frame would cover it and it'll look weird. But now that that is on there, I can take a liner brush. I'm going to sign this with white. Actually, I'm going to do, just so it's not too bright, I'm going to pull a little bit of that red oxide in there. And now I just have to trace what I had previously done. Move the camera so you can see a little bit better. I just trace right over it. So see how I can lift the brush and I get that perfect curve. Now, once you've done this enough times, like I don't actually need to do this because I'm so used to writing my name with a paintbrush, but when you're newer, that is definitely a bit of a struggle. So there is your little cheat for making your signature really look like your signature and not just a smudge of paint. There we go. Now, what you want to make sure you do, I am not going to erase, because I can still see a little of my eraser marks. Don't erase that until the next day. Like I will let that sit overnight because even if I use the hairdryer, sometimes a little dot will stay wet and I'll erase it and it leaves this huge smudge mark. Looks terrible. I'm going to dry this though. Okay. So there is the finished painting. Unfortunately, this is having a horrible glare, so I apologize for that. So if somebody, oh, nope, wrong button. Oh, duh. Pay attention, Lisa. Let's see if I can raise this in a way that you can see the lighting a little bit better, because this is a much nicer dark color here. It's not quite that bright. I can show you here too. So this is available if you want to bid on that. Over on my website, Lachri.com. I think the starting bid is $65, so a nice soft little dandelion. It's funny how often I paint these guys because they're kind of a pain in my butt right now in my backyard. I don't like to use sprays as much as possible, so I'm out there, you have to dig up the roots. It's a whole thing. I love painting them, not enjoying pulling them though. And I know some of you are thinking, leave them for the bees and such. Yeah, my HOA is not okay with that, so I have other stuff with it, the bees. Okay. Let's see. So you can go ahead and send your questions in. And let me put a lid on my palette. One of the things that I want to talk about, let's get that. Let me get a drink of tea. Oh, my fish are coming tomorrow. I have new fish from Fish Hotel. They've already been quarantined. So I just got my notification of it being in transit from the website. I already knew they were in transit, but anyway, yay. Okay, so yeah, what do I have this at? Actually, let me check. On my website, Lachri.com, which should come up faster than that. What did I start that one? I think it was $65. Yep, 65. So if you want a dandelion, there you go. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about, I realized this week, I have a tendency, and this very much relates to all of us as artists, I have a tendency, just based on time, I look at a painting or a project, I find a reference photo I like, and I find a lot I like, and I choose not to do them just because I look at it, I save it to my computer like Unsplash or Pixabay, and then think, oh, that's gonna take too long, I don't have time to work on that. That's gonna be too time consuming. That's gonna be too hard. And that's a big one too. And it's never that it's too hard, it's that it's too time consuming. So first, that's the first tip I have for you. Try to move away from the idea of something being too hard. It is rarely too hard. It's too time consuming, very different. Tedious, yes. Hard, no. If you're willing to slow down and put in the work, that is going to make a big difference in what that end result comes out like. But I noticed with myself, I'm so busy I've got a new Patreon lesson every week. That is very time consuming because I have to get the art together, and then I spend many, many, many hours getting the voiceover. Then I've got to do the coloring page. I've got the horse. I just have to upload it. Those of you waiting for your coloring page, I owe you last weekend, this week. They're coming. Or that one's coming. But anyway, I have so much to do. And so it's so easy for me to do oh, that's going to take too long. Let me pick a simpler project. I'm not only boring myself, and this I think is very common for artists. We get bored because we keep doing things that we think is easy or that isn't going to take as long, but also that gets boring very quickly. So it hit me this week. I'm like, what am I doing? I do that all the time, and I am bored. I am bored of doing simple, basic lessons, and they're fun to do sometimes, but I've been doing too many lately. I want to do some more advanced lessons, some more advanced things that take a lot longer. And so I chose a project this week of these oranges with this blurry, out of focus background. And actually, let me grab it. Let me show you what I'm working on. I think this is going to be something that will affect or can be applied to all of us. Look at the detail of this. It may be washed out on this camera. Let's find out. Okay, this is what I'm working on. That is the out of focus portion. So as I move on to this orange, and these leaves are going to be somewhat out of focus. This specific slice is super crisp, super in detail. And I have seen this photo so many times, and I've wanted to paint it or draw it, and every time I look at it, no, it's going to take too long. And even then when I thought, okay, you know what, I think I'd like to do this in colored pencil. Well, maybe I should do pan pastel to save time. So often I'm making choices based on how can I save time. You know what, sometimes we need to just move away from this idea of constantly trying to save time, constantly thinking that's too hard, aka that's too time consuming. We do that to ourselves so often. I started this project. I have almost a renewal of, I can't wait to work on this. Like last night, and I didn't get it done. I didn't make enough time. I was trying to hurry up and get my normal work done so that I could get to this, because normally I don't draw on Tuesday nights. I wanted to. I haven't been so passionate about getting to that easel in so long. It's because I chose something that isn't boring me anymore. And it's not that it's not fun to do simple things. Or more beginner things are absolutely fun. But if you do it too much, you're going to lose interest. Challenge yourself. Pick something that is time consuming, that's too hard. That is often what will refresh that passion for art. Jump into that project that you're not even sure how it's going to come out. Can you pull that off? I wonder if I can do that. That alone sometimes can just so motivate you to want to get work done. So that is what I'm doing right now. Again, see, I don't know if you can even see. Yeah, it's picking up pretty well the detail. Trying to get it to be somewhat out of focus so that this one is super in focus. All of that was a bit more challenging than usual. Definitely more time consuming. So worth it. When you see a project that you found on Unsplash, on Pixabay, a photograph you took, and you want to paint it, you're like, oh, I'd love to do that someday. Do it now. Don't put it off for when you have more time, for when you're more skilled, for when you have more practice. Don't put it off anymore. Jump into the hard things. And then that's the other thing. We often hobble ourselves because we think, oh, I'm a beginner, so I should stick with beginner tutorials. If you want to stay a beginner forever as an artist, stay with beginner tutorials. They hold you back. Start with them, do a few of them, or even do some when you're just like, okay, I want a quick project in between some of my bigger projects. It is fun to do beginner stuff. I'm not saying, I get it, trust me, I like doing it. But when you do it too much, one, you'll start to lose interest. Two, you stop progressing. You're never going to get better if you keep doing the same thing. I've made this example before. If you're learning to play an instrument, you may master Mary Had a Little Lamb, but you're never going to be able to play Bach or Vivaldi if all you do is play Mary Had a Little Lamb over and over again. If you want to reach that point of playing Bach and Vivaldi, you have to practice it. And when you start learning those songs, oh my gosh, it's going to sound horrible. Dying Cat, horrible. But that's how you get there. You have to start doing things that won't sound as good. Same thing with your art. It may not look as good when you start doing things that are more advanced, that are more time consuming, that you have to pay more attention to. Okay, is this a soft line? Is this a harsh line? Are my values right? It may not look as good as what you felt like your beginner stuff looked just as good as the teachers because it was all beginner. But that's how you get to play Vivaldi. You jump into the hard stuff. Don't hold yourself back by sticking to the beginning stuff. And again, you will probably lose interest. You will feel bored. Renew that passion for art. Choose something that just feels so hard and so far beyond your skill level. That is the project that you need to choose. Okay, the other thing I want to talk a little bit about, and I'll probably be saying this a lot more, I keep thinking about this, is that we have a tendency, I'm not in the mood to create, and then you get more, we do this all the time, like the gym. I'm not in the mood to go to the gym, but when you actually go, you feel good. We are meant to create. And I think that's something that we really need to understand as artists. As humans, we were all meant to create, whether it be in the garden, the kitchen, I'm trying to think of other things that we create. A mechanic, they create, they build stuff, building stuff, woodworking. We were meant to create. And I feel like a lot of us get in this rut. And it's very similar to what I was talking about. We were just kind of like, I'm bored. I'm just going to sit down and watch TV. We were meant to make things. We were meant to create things. Do it. Don't think I'm bored, I'm just going to watch TV. There's this line between being a consumer and just, watching TV, playing video games, and being the creator. Get into creating more. It will do so much for your own mood, for your own happiness levels. Should shoot through the roof when you are creating things. And it doesn't matter if it's art. It doesn't matter if it's gardening. Making things, just the act of making things, making something happen. Food. I know people who love cooking. I don't understand those people, but okay, if that's your thing, create. Try to spend more time creating and less time consuming TV, consuming video games, consuming things. And it's not that those things are always bad. It's just that I feel like we get in a rut and we do it so often that we miss out on the happiness that the act of creation makes or gives us. Okay, so now let's get on to your actual questions. And that is something that I want to really start reminding us all the time. We were meant to create. That is what we are here for. Like, what else are we on this earth for other than making things? I don't care what you're making. Go make something. Oh, new bid for the auction. Yay, somebody's getting a dandelion. Okay, questions. Ooh, got a bunch of them today. Yay. Okay. Dalton says, I have a tip for watercolors. Use 2 jars. The first jar will be for swirling off the color. Second jar will be for cleaning water to dip your brush in. Absolutely. I have 2 right here. I do that exact thing for. And that's what I was talking about earlier. I keep seeing, where somebody was like making that suggestion that we needed to do that for acrylic painting. We don't. But for watercolor, we do. That's what I have. Here's my rinse the brush. Here was my load the brush. Obviously, I loaded it with a bit too much paint. They both need to be cleaned before I use them again. But absolutely, that is what I do for watercolor. For acrylic paints, though, we don't need it. And actually, let me show you. I'm going to show, let me see if I can slide this over. Where's the palette? Move this. Can you see? That is mud. Look at the mud I have here. Even if I dip this brush in here, this may not work. Can you see that? Does it show the color? Yeah, it comes a little green. Okay, maybe this brush just isn't, no, yeah, it's just the water is green. It didn't matter at all. My whites, when you're using acrylic paints, they're not translucent to the extent, let me put this up here. Oops, wrong button. White paint is not translucent to the extent that your watercolors are. So when you hear somebody tell you, you need 2 jars for acrylic painting, you need your acrylic water to be clean. Mine's mud. Mine is actually tinted green right now, but on the painting, straight white. And that was a good example. You can't even, let me pull this out. There is no green tint at all on, whoops, there, the dandelion, completely white. And that was done when that water looked like mud. So that tip or you have to have 2 things for acrylics, absolutely not. Watercolor, yes. This is not watercolor, it's acrylics. So, good tip. Okay. Oh my gosh, you guys have a lot of questions. Yay. Let's pull up, I lost Discord. Dolphin Porcelain Soul said, do you prefer the canvas boards over stretched canvas, as that looks a pain to move and paint the bottom without getting finger paint? Yeah, I like stretched canvas better. Hands down, stretched canvas. But this is such a wonderful surface to paint on. Like, it is so smooth. Can you, oh, I can't get that close because it won't focus, but the detail was so easy to get. Getting smooth blending, so easy to do. But the Frederick's Blue Label canvas is not quite as smooth. I think this is a little bit smoother. Very similar. So, but when you're dealing with an actual canvas, you've got those edges to grip onto, and it is so much easier. And I can just hang it on the wall without putting a frame on it, where this either needs to be framed or sat on a shelf. So those are kind of your pros and cons there. Oh, Meenal says, I miss you so much. Oh, I'm glad to see you. Okay, let's see. Sonic the Hedgehog said, hi Lisa, what is your rule of thumb in accepting commissions? Can I be assertive in charging X amount for revisions or corrections? You absolutely need to. You want to make sure when you do a contract, yes, first off, be picky. Don't accept any client. I have had clients or people contact me wanting them that I could not accept as a client. I knew they were going to be a nonsense. You can tell sometimes just in the first few emails, that person is going to be a nightmare to work with. One guy, how I knew, is he had like 5 or 7 dogs that he had owned since the 70s, and he just has been going around having different artists paint them. Okay, great. So he contacts me. Yeah, I can do all of those. And he wanted a discount having that many dogs, which, okay, maybe. But the big thing was when he asked me at what point during the process do I get to start requesting changes? I'm sorry, what? That's not a part of the process unless I screwed something up. There was one time I painted a corgi, cute as corgi, loved the painting, but my reference photo on the computer monitor I was using was off. The color on that monitor was off and I didn't know it at the time. And so I made him more yellow than he should have been more red, or the other way around. Maybe he was supposed to be more red and he needed to have more of a golden tint. I forget what it was. Super easy to fix. That I will fix, and that I'm not going to charge for. That was my mistake. That was it's my monitor's mistake, but it was my mistake for not knowing that. So it was super easy fix though, because I just had the tint glaze the color. No problem. But when somebody contacts you immediately knowing they're going to want changes, why would you hire me if you know you're going to need adjustments? Now, to be fair, maybe the previous artists he worked with weren't great and they kept screwing things up and they needed his help. Could have happened. More likely than not, he's just kind of a pain in the rear, and that is not someone I'm working with. I told him, well, you've seen examples of my work. It is going to look like the photo. If you want changes from the photo, you need to let me know before I start. When I give you that layout, when I come up with a mock-up where this is the background we're going to do, this is the positioning, when I do all that and I send that to you and you approve it, that's it. No changes after that. So I chose not to work with him because I could tell he was definitely going to be an issue. But I mean, it was kind of a weird situation anyway. Sometimes when you have weird situations like that, you can be like, that's not going to be a normal person. Like, that is not going to go well. So no, be picky about it, and make sure you haven't anyone taking commissions, whether you think that that person is going to be a bit of a pain or not. Always, always, always let them know that I will include 1 or 2 revisions, 1 or 2 fixes. And even that's a lot depending on, like, if you are established and you are very accurate in your work, you shouldn't need to be making fixes. You shouldn't need to be making changes. So you can just tell them once you've approved the layout, and this is what I personally do, no changes. Any changes are an additional, you could do $25 an hour, $50 an hour, $20 per change, $25 per change, whatever it is. You need to have a fee. Now, it's not that you're necessarily going to be making money off those revisions. It's going to stop them from requesting revisions. That is the point of that. If I screwed something up, I'm not charging you. I'm going to fix that. If you were like, oh, I thought you were going to do this, the halter on the horse in brown, and I wanted black or whatever, the other way around, whatever, I'm going to change that, no problem. Or if in my case, like there was the recent, I mentioned this on a horse I did on Patreon recently. I was pretty sure, I couldn't remember if she wanted the halter to be the brown like her previous portrait or the black like the horse was currently wearing. And I knew we talked about it, but I couldn't remember. So I painted it black knowing she glazed over it and turned it brown. She did want brown, super easy fix. But that was like, I knew that was my thing to fix. So no, because I couldn't remember what she had said. No problem. But it really, as long as the person knows you're going to charge, because I've had people who wanted to make changes. There was one woman I worked with, And you'll hear this occasionally from people, oh, I was an art major in college. So they think that they're super artsy and they want to be a huge part of the process. Like the process of painting is fun. She was having a blast. She just thought the whole process. So it was that constant asking for change. Well, can you do this? Can you do that different? Can you do this? I know you can do this. I know you can change that. And it was like, that was my own fault because she was kind of a friend at the time. Turned out to be kind of a stalker, but that was a whole other issue. Not a friend now. But anyway, point is, it was very, I should have that was actually kind of my wake up call. Put a line in the sand, no changes. Once we come up with the design, if you want changes, you let me know now because I do a Photoshop mock-up. If they don't like that Photoshop mock-up, they need to let me know before. The second that brush hits the canvas, deposit is non-refundable, you're going to pay for changes. So that you do want to include that in your contract. And your contract can be as simple as an email, something where you've got proof. Look, I told you this, you agreed to this before you move forward with the commission. But yeah, you're the artist. You get to be picky. Don't let people walk all over you because it's going to make for a miserable experience both for the client and for you. You want to have your set. These are my rules. This is how I go through. I mean, I wouldn't call them rules, but these are my policies. That's a better way to put it. These are my policies, and that's just how the process goes. And what I like to do when I used to take commissions, I had a whole thing on my website explaining the process so the person knew what to expect. Here are my prices for however many animals, for whatever size, for whatever medium. It was all broken down. You're going to send me a photo. You're going to give me an idea of the background you like. If you don't know what you want, I'm going to do a bunch of mock-ups. That's all free. I don't charge for that. You tell me, they're going to be crappy Photoshop ones. You tell me what you like, and then once I get the approval, I'll draw everything out. From that point on, any changes are additional because that's now, and the deposit needs to be made before I ever touch the canvas. So set the rules, keep the rules. That will make your life so much easier. But don't feel like embarrassed to ask somebody for a deposit. Don't feel embarrassed telling them it costs this much to make adjustments. You just need to let them know before you start. You cannot tell them halfway through the painting when they do start asking for adjustments. You can't tell them then that you're going to charge. You have to have told them that way before that paintbrush hit the canvas. Okay. Let's see. Alice said, would you draw a ladybug standing on a white daisy next, maybe with colored pencils over watercolor? I like it. I don't know if it'll be next, because I have to come up with the project tonight. And I don't know if I'll find those reference photos. I'm actually going to write that down because I like it. Now, I don't know. Yeah, with watercolor, I probably could get that done in one of these. Okay, ladybug. And you said a white daisy? White daisy, okay. And it will, if I do it next week, it'll just be a matter of how quick I can find a reference photo because I need to kind of plan that out tonight and I'm already tired. But coming soon, writing that down, watercolor and colored pencil. I like it. Do any of you do a short, like I always write H2O color and CP for colored pencil. Okay. If anyone tried to read my notes, they would be like, what is wrong with this girl? Next, Dolphin Soul said, I would love to see a video of mess ups, how to fix them. That's a good idea. I'm taking some more notes. Let's see. I like that. I could do one in multiple mediums. I have to like collect mistakes though to do it. So I like the idea though. That I need to. Monica said, you're a great teacher, Lisa. Learned so much about painting in color from your channel. Oh, thank you. Art of Raven D said, my cat hasn't caught on yet, but when I try to watch myself, no, lay down. I think it's the high-pitched voice that's making them think, Wade, lay down. No, lay down, bad cow. Good try. That was a very good try. I'll give you one at the end. Let's see, I haven't caught on myself from saying, I'm not saying the word. I say the T word when I talk to someone. We say the C word for C-O-O-K-I, whatever. I can never say it out, like spell it. I have to write it down. Let's see. Shelly said, what kind of stretchers did you get for your watercolor paper? So I got them from Auto Stretchers, I believe, OTTO Stretchers. And I showed them last week. Let me grab one. I do one. I'll show you really quick though. They were really cool. I haven't used them yet. I'm excited to use them. Actually, if I do that watercolor and colored pencil next week, I will definitely have it pre-stretched on one of these. So this is the smaller one. And these little screws, just you unscrew them and these wood pieces come off. So you would put your wet paper that you've already soaked, put it on here, clamp it down, and then let it dry like that. So they're really cool. Oh, I think it's OTTO stretchers, something like that. So I'm excited to use them. I think they're going to be, I think that this will make me start stretching paper instead of normally, because I refuse to use gum tape. Like I just hate that stuff. It doesn't work well. It's a whole drama. So I avoid it and then I regret it. So I think this will solve my problem. Melissa said, is the red oxide you use transparent red oxide? No, it's not. It's just red oxide, which is actually fairly opaque. Transparent red oxide would work well too. I should probably pick some up. Also, any tips to make fine lines really fine? I end up with thick blobs too often. So that is actually, I'm going to do a little demonstration on how to get thin lines with your acrylic paint. Woo! After I throw crap on the floor. Let me put this back before, oh my gosh, before I mess that up. Okay, I could probably do it on this paper. It's not ideal. It should work fine. Let me find a sheet. Oh my gosh, this is like super used up. Here we go. Okay, let me do a little bit of rearranging really quick because I need some space in order to make this work so I can do a quick demo for you. I apologize for the wait. Okay, let's see. Okay, oh, this actually works well. I think you can see everything pretty well. So tip number one for getting, is that another question? Let me make sure, yeah. Tip number one, use a brush that has a very, very long bristles. The brushes that you see that have shorter bristles, let me get one so I can show you what I'm talking about because I'm pretty sure I have one here. These aren't great examples. Oh, this one kind of works. Wow, what kind of brush is this? I don't even, oh, I bet it came from one of my Smart Art boxes. Okay. You may look at a brush like this and think that those shorter bristles, and I've seen some with really tiny bristles, you can hardly see. Is that in focus even? They're little, that is blurry. But the point is, they're tiny. Look at these longer ones. This, here's the difference where they both start at the same point. Look how much longer this bristle is. Ah, come on, focus. That this one is than this one. You want the longer bristles, even if it looks like this one has smaller bristles. When you're shopping, you don't want to waste your time on that because what happens? The paint is inevitably going to build up right here. No, come on, focus, camera. Focus, focus. What is your problem? This is going to build up right here. And as it builds up, that's going to cause the bristles to stop being close together and they'll start fraying. So it's going to make it much harder for you to get those thin lines. Okay, so that is my first tip. Get a bristle with a long, or a script liner brush with a long bristle brushes. This one's a number 2 and number 1 is also great. The next tip, water. You have to thin your paint with water. If you are not thinning that paint with water, well, it's going to be chunky. Actually, let me show you. I'm not thinning it with water. No matter how thin, see how it's kind of skipping? It's not really thin. It's not amazing. Not impressed. So what I want to do instead, I'm going to rinse that paint off and I'm going to reload it with some water on the brush. I can dab that a little. Let's reload. Actually, we'll use this one here. See how I thin it and see how I twist that brush back and forth. If you've got a chunk of paint on there, like I do, can you kind of see that chunk? That's not going to work. Thin that out, twist that off, dab it a few times if you need to. Now I can get these super thin. I mean, as thin as you possibly want. You can barely see these lines. Those lines are, even the camera can't even see them. It can't focus on it. But look, they're so thin you can barely see. And I'm barely adding pressure. Now the next tip is you push hard, you get a thick line. Barely add pressure. Well, that one I ran out of paint. And barely adding pressure, gives you a thinner line. So those are my tips. Thin the paint with some water to make a liner brush work well. And then just barely hit the canvas there. Now I recommend get a scratch piece of paper or a scratch canvas and practice. Practice making those lines. But you've got to start with a brush that has the longer bristles. That's going to allow you to do a longer line. If you use a brush like this, you're not, well, this one's actually kind of thick, so it's not the best example. But what typically will happen, one, it's harder to make a thin line, but it's shorter. See how I run out of paint sooner? With this brush, I'm not going to run out of paint as fast. So not only is the brush going to stay in healthy condition longer because the paint's not, it's being kept down here instead of up at it where it meets the handle, it also holds more paint. So I'm able to make that longer brush stroke. So those are my tips for getting fine detail with your liner brush. Okay, next, almost 10. We'll see if I can get through these real quick. Sheila said, "You're awesome, Lisa. Thank you for your expertise. Good, always good info." Thank you. And 3 more minutes to bid on the Dandelion. Almost out of time for this guy. Where are we? And he will be varnished. So now whoever bids on him, I do need to let you know, he needs to be varnished. I'll varnish him probably tomorrow or usually Friday. I don't usually get to him on Thursdays. Then he needs to dry for a few days. So I usually end up not shipping it till the following week. Like the bee from 2 weeks ago just went out today because I want to make sure that varnish is completely dry because it feels kind of tacky for a while at first and I don't want anything sticking on it when I mash it in between all the pieces of cardboard and the glass scenes. So that just went out. Actually, so did the bunny. So just so you know, it's not getting there tomorrow. Let's see. I'm silently listening and absorbing all the superb knowledge. Thanks a lot. Oh, you're welcome. I want Sujaneth? Sujaneth. That is a cool name that I cannot pronounce, and I apologize. Patricia said, how many hours a week on average to get to your level? On average, how long does an advanced piece like the oranges take? Ooh. The oranges, God, I don't even know. I work abnormally fast, so I'm not a really good comparison here. I'm out of breath. Can you tell from running across the thing to get all my stuff? I am out of shape. But anyway, sorry. It's going to vary, and I know that's not the answer you're looking for, but honestly, it's just going to vary from person to person, from artist to artist. So those oranges for me, I had the background done in one night. It was probably 2 to 3 hours worth of work just for this portion here, the out of focus portion. Let me move that up. I spent another couple of hours just working the next night on these leaves here and these two and this one. So that was maybe another 3 or 4 hours. So it's slow. It is not a fast process to complete it. I spent one night on this orange. I think I did that one and that one. I don't remember. I think this one was the following night. I don't remember if I did all those 3 together. I spent another night just on this branch and those leaves. And that was probably 2 or 3 hours. So it is not, and again, I kind of work on the fast side. It's not a fast process, especially colored pencil is very slow. How long it takes is going to depend on you because it's not as simple as if you put in 100 hours, you're going to be an expert. You have plenty of people who have put in the 100 hours. Let's pretend I've only painted for 100 hours. Somebody else has only painted for 100 hours. Why is mine night and day better than this person? Because this person probably stuck with beginner lessons. Or I'm over here going, what's the hardest thing I can find? That's what I'm going to try doing. That is a very big difference of somebody who progresses and somebody who stays in the same place permanently. So it's not as simple as me saying, if you put in this many hours, this is what's going to happen. What are you spending the time to do? Are you focusing on the things that feel too difficult, feel too time consuming? That will push you forward so much faster than somebody who's like, I'm just forever going to paint Bob Ross. I'm forever going to paint every beginner tutorial I can find on YouTube. Beginning tutorials are fun. I'm not saying you shouldn't do them. I'm just saying the artist who only does that is not going to progress like the artist who's like, you know what? I don't care if I paint something ugly. I'm going to choose the hardest thing I can find. I'm going to paint that. That's the artist who's going to progress faster. So this artist might get to expert level 20 hours in, whereas this one, 100 hours, still looks like a beginner. So it just depends on the actions you take and what you're working on and what you notice. The artist who takes the time to really observe, to really see what's in that reference photo, to see, okay, this is dark here, and then it gets lighter, and then it fades back to a medium tone. is going to noticing those type of things, and that happens with practice. So it's not like, oh, I don't notice it, so I'm not good. That will get there, but you're aware that that's something you're trying to notice, you're trying to be aware of. That artist is going to progress much faster than the artist who's like, this is orange, this is green. Okay, but yeah, what were the values? Where did it get light? Where did it get dark? Where did it curve in a little bit? Where did these little, noticing those little things, I don't know why I have to move to do a curve, but noticing those little things, that's the artist who's going to progress faster than the artist who's like, it's orange, done. And they're like, why does it look like a cartoon? Because you thought picking the right color was what's going to make it look realistic. No, it's all the other things. It's your values, it's your details, it's your all the other things. So hope that helps. Okay. Next. That was a great question. No one's asked that. Let's see. Rose said, would you ever paint a kangaroo or a cassowary? I can't say that. Maybe if I found the right photo. I've never found a photo of one of those guys where I was like, I have to paint that. They're cute, but I don't know why. I just haven't seen the photo. Have I looked though, really? That may be the problem. Every time I've taken photos of kangaroos, they're passed out in the grass like it's hot, I'm sleeping. So I never got a good photo myself, but I'm not going to say I wouldn't. Art of Raven D said, if you read this, you will say that no, I will not. No, I will not. Good try. Snow said, what type of palette do you use and what do you do with the leftover paint? That is a great question. So my palette is a New Wave glass palette. This is, let me scooch this over. So this is a piece of glass in here. Can I pull this up? I think I'm more likely to break my little thing. There we go. So this is just a piece of glass that sets inside this, what's essentially a big Tupperware. And mine, I go with the one that's gray on the back, so that you could technically make your own. Just get a piece of glass and paint the bottom. But this is a thicker piece. It's not as likely to break, and I'm afraid of glass, so that's a thing. And it has a lid that just fits right on top and seals it in. So what I like to do, these are two, so the New Wave glass palette and the Masterson, their palette. Now their palette is supposed to be a stay wet palette, and they have a whole kit you can get that is supposed to, well, keep the paint wet. But I actually prefer this, and I keep a paper towel. This is just a wet paper towel. I can change it out every day or so, and that will keep all of these globs of paint are going to be wet. Actually, all of these globs of paint, these are from, what was the bee that I painted. That's actually the yellow paint. Last time I painted with these acrylics was when I did the bee from 2 weeks ago. That paint's still wet, see? Still wet, still perfectly good, because I left it sealed in this with this little paper towel. Now, these bits here are going to dry, so it doesn't matter what kind of, like the fact that I keep it wet with the lid and the paper towel in it, it will dry. So all I take is a glass scraper or a razor blade, and I am just going to scrape that up, and it cleans right up. Super easy. So any of the old paint, but these wet areas are still wet, still good for mixing. And what do I do with the old paint? I just toss it. It goes, I mean, they come up in clumps. I don't think I have any. I have a container somewhere where I've saved a bunch of them, but it's plastic. So it's just pieces of dried plastic that then goes in the trash. But that is definitely my favorite palette setup I've used. I've tried several in the past. I've tried the Stay Wet stuff. I don't like the Stay Wet kit that you can put, where it's like this damp pad or some people will put a paper towel and then wax paper over it. One, you can't clean it with the razor blade. You're being very wasteful because you're having to throw that wax paper away every time here. I don't have wax paper to throw away, so I'm avoiding excess trash. It's just all around a much more, it's less wasteful and it's easier. So it's like it's got its added bonus of why wouldn't I go with this method? I have some of the palettes, the plastic ones that you can just peel it off, but they're smaller. They're not convenient. If you're working small, they're okay, but they're just not super convenient. I don't like that. This is definitely my favorite. Okay. And then even the peel off ones, over time, if they get kind of scraped, the paint starts to stick to it and it doesn't peel off. They're just not that convenient. Do I like gouache? Any reason you don't use them? Yeah, I don't own any. That is the only reason I don't own any, or I don't use it. I need to buy some because I love it. It's just opaque watercolor is what gouache is, and it's wonderful. I love it. Just don't own any. I do want to do a quick opening and tell you a little bit about Aquascella before we get going. I'm going to open some my prints, and this guy should be sold now, I believe. We've got a winner who won this for $65. Seriously, like someone just won an original painting that is blurry and out of focus. Come on, focus, $65. That is a deal. That is awesome. Okay, let me readjust my setup here really quick, and I will show you, I don't want to mess up these oranges, so I'm going to put them away. I will show you the prints, and hopefully they will be good. Need to make sure I get all the paint off my hands. So let's clean everything up, and then we will wrap this up. And I'll give the boys something, but I'm not going to tell them what it is yet because they will die for us. Okay, just as much of this. Let me make sure I get as much paint off of my fingers so I don't get paint on the prints. I'm assuming they're good because they always have been good from this place. And I need a blade to cut this with. They pack theirs well though, so I don't know how easily I'm going to be able to get to these. Let's find out. And I need to back this way up. Looks like the lights are falling off that tree. Let's go to the easel. Move you so I don't mess you up since you are sold. And I should have a video of varnishing that up in a couple of days. Let's back this camera way up. You can see all the lights and everything I have here because this is a big box. Okay, let's see. I don't know the easiest way to open this. We're going to stick it like that for now. And I'm just going to slice this. So this came from Giclée today. These I'm going to be bringing with me to Aquascello, which are, what is that? The 20th and 21st of May? I don't know, go to aquascello.com and get tickets if you're going to be in Dallas. It's a big art and aquarium show. You've got fresh and saltwater. And the prints that I sell on my website are from Fine Art America. It's a dropship company. The only prints time that you can really get Giclées from me are from at Aquascello. Enjoy looking at my back here. Sorry about that. They pack this so well. I have never had anything come not in perfect condition from Giclée today. Okay, how can I get this out easily? Hold on. Let me see if I can slide these out. They might be taped in. I'm not sure how they've got this one. Are they coming loose? No. Okay, let's see. This is not going as easily as I thought it would. I'm going to try doing this on this first to open. This isn't awkward at all. I don't want to mess up the box because I actually keep my Giclée stuff, or everything from Giclée today in this box when I take it to the show because it keeps anything from getting messed up. They just pack things so, okay, I'm able to get it out now. That makes things easier. But I saved their boxes because I've never had anything damaged when I took them back and forth to shows as long as I used the boxes they came in with from this company. Come on. Okay. Let's see. Added parts. Audit parts? I don't think that's for me. I think it's just a sticker. I don't know what that's on there for. Back to the, nope, wrong thing. Easel. And let's cut this slowly. And slowly on just one end. I don't want to cut through. My gosh, they really have these taped in well. Let's try going back to the floor on this. I don't want to mess these up because, so Giclées are better than normal prints. It's like your highest quality print. Here we go. I'm getting somewhere. Okay, they're taped in really well. I want you to see how they're taped because I'm always so impressed with how they do this. Okay, maybe just this side. I have freed, oh, they look so good. Oh my gosh. I'm excited. Okay, so I got a few different sizes here. Let me flip this around. I order theirs so that they come, easel. They come, oh, it doesn't look as good for you guys. It looks perfect in person though. They come pre-bagged. So they have them all, like it's taped to the board. Like nothing is getting damaged in shipping. Like it is so impressive how they pack stuff. Let me see if I can get one of these out. Actually, I don't want to do that one because that one's light colored. They are not easy to get to. If I can just get the top open. So I always pay extra to have them pre-bag everything. And it is going to make, when I sell them, come on, much easier. You know what, I'm just going to go down the side here because I'm going to have to open that for Aquashell anyway. And what I will do is just keep them stored this way. Come on, open just the top. Come on. Hold on, this is not, wow, my arm looks weirdly large on camera there. That's an attractive view. Come on, open up. Thank you. At least let me see one of you. Out we go. Okay, I got one. So they come pre-bagged. This will give us better color anyway. Here's my octopus. And these ones are the 8x10s. You'd have to go to their website. I don't remember the cost of everything. But I get the Moab Natural. So MOAB Natural is what I've always had them printed on. It's a thick paper. This is not flimsy. Like, it is a nice paper. And that, holy crap, like, can you see? Okay, it's going to be blurry there. It looks so accurate to the photo and to the painting. Like, the painting's over there. And it's just so, I'm super excited. Like, their prints are always so good. The turtles are oversaturated a bit, but they look better than the original, so I'm not going to complain about that. That actually happens a lot. Come on, go back in there. Usually, most places will print a bit darker than what the original is, so keep that in mind when you order prints. I usually lighten them a bit, if it's Vista print especially. Okay, so those are going to be safe. I'm not going to pull these out, but these, I've got one more in here. So those are the two 8x10s. We've got the, whoops, wrong one again. The sea turtle. This is so washed out. This looks so good in person. It does not look good on under this lighting with that camera. So let's get the other one out. I'm going to pull this over here so I don't mess that up. Like I said, I don't want to mess up the packing because this is how they're going to be stored before and after Aquashella. I've just had really good results of not having things messed up that way. How many did I order? Is there more in there too? Oh my gosh. So I have, I think, an 18x24 size. It's bigger. I'm not going to pull that out. But I've also got, I ordered a bunch of the octopuses. I'm banking or hoping on that the octopus sells well because I ordered several sizes of these. I'll show you the next size up. Come on. Okay. So we've got more of the 8x10s. And then I've also got, here's the easel. This one is, what is that one? Is that a 16x20? I don't know. I ordered so many different sizes or something close to that. Yeah, I think this was a, was that a, no, maybe the other one's a 16x20. What's the other size? I don't know. I got a bigger size too. But anyway, they look so good in person. They're so accurate. Super washed out here. But yeah, another win from Giclée today. That is, I'm not sponsored or anything. I'd like to be because I spend enough money with them. But wow, that is, I am so impressed. And it's just so nice to have them all pre-bagged because when you're at an art show and you're selling things, you don't want to hand somebody just an open print. Yeah, you can get the bags yourself, but with them, all of these are ready to go. I don't have to do any preparing work. I don't have to sit there and bag things before the show. They're there. I bring these boards. I store these boards under my table, my display table. And I just pull out, when one print sells, I just pull out another one to replace it. So, and actually what I usually do is on my table at Aquashella, I put a sample of all the prints out have a sticker with the price. And then when they sell, I grab a fresh one that no one's been fingering, no kids have messed it up. So they get one that's like absolutely perfect condition. So anyway, I'm super excited about that. Stacy said, what do you suggest to prep the canvas with? I struggle with using so much paint on the background. I'm not sure what you mean. Stacy, if you would like, because I have not done one of these in a while, if you are willing to take a video of yourself doing the painting, show me what the problem is. Show me how much paint you put on. Show me the end result of where the problem is, and you will send me that video. I will make a video response to that showing you exactly how to fix it. but I would need to know what kind of canvas you're using. I need to know what kind of paint, what brand of paint. I want to see how much water you're mixing. I want to see if you can record yourself like doing what you're having a problem with. I would be more than happy to make a video here on YouTube, because I'm sure what problem you're having, others are having too. So if you would like to do that, let me know. Email me, lisa@lachri.com. or contact me on MeWe. If you're on Patreon, contact me there. Send me a message. But send me a message. Don't message me through Instagram. It all goes to spam, and I almost never check that, so I wouldn't see it. But I would love to see what your problem is and actually solve it for you. But just by hearing it, there's no way for me to know what's going on without seeing. So I would like to help you with that problem. Let's see. I think we are caught up, and we can wrap this up. Oh, I am running late tonight. I think, let me make sure. Yes, we are good. Okay, thank you guys so much for joining. Make sure to check out our moderators' channels. The links are in the video description. They all have art channels here. They're awesome. Nick even live streams every Monday. Clark Fine Art, I don't know how, I feel like a jerk for not knowing. I think she live streams regular. I think she's been on a break. So anyway, she normally has, check them out. They're linked in the video description. Thank you guys so much for joining. I will see you next week, maybe with if I can find the reference photo. I like the idea of a watercolor and colored pencil ladybug and dandelions. So, or white daisy, sorry, not dandelion. Hopefully the plan. Thank you guys, and I will see you Wednesday and this week, because I've got lots of videos coming. So I'll see you later. Bye.